get going then. First of all, apologies.
So we haven't had any apologies for absence, but I can confirm that the council has received resignation letters from Kyle and Ian Thornley, effective immediately. So they're not here tonight.
Okay, request for dispensation and declaration of interests. As usual, is member of the rugby club. Anything else? Okay, nothing else? Minutes of the last meeting, any comments? Okay.
Is that a proposal from Norma? Yeah. Was there a second? Sorry, I wasn't watching. Thank you. Sign every page, please. There's quite a few pages.
Sure.
Did anyone abstain from that vote?
Before we go any further, next, I just ask a question. So, it's legal for us to be videoed and for it to be put on YouTube, internet, Facebook, whatever.
Correct, unless you're under the age of 18 or if you're classed as a vulnerable adult in terms of the safeguarding rules. But other than that, all parish council, or all council meetings, not just parish council meetings, can be recorded by anyone and published anywhere. Yeah.
It's the same applies to all council meetings.
It's the same with, yeah, as Norma says, it all the way up to Parliament.
Yeah. If there was some of that happened, could it be used as evidence against you? The parish council meeting.
If something were to happen,
If some of that happened, an incident that happened tonight, could it be used against you as evidence?
well, it would be part of a legal record, so technically I suppose yes, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I do know it is legal for all council meetings to be recorded, and there is no legal grounds unless, as I say, safeguard adult or under the age of 18 to ask anyone to not record the meeting. Or if there's anything that's classed as Part 2 papers, so confidential papers, but there isn't anything confidential on the agenda tonight. That tends to be matters relating to staff recruitment.
Which is the next point. Is decide if there are any items of business. Has anybody got any items of business which require exclusion of press and public? No. Okay, and then the next item on the agenda is we got sent a number of policies, 2, 4, 6, 8, which are all read and studied closely. Any objections to any of them?
They're only the policies in line with what parish councils have.
Yeah. I don't believe there's anything contentious in any of them.
This round of policies, subject to being approved tonight, will mean the council has got sufficient policies in place to satisfy that particular aspect of the audit for this year. If the policies weren't in place, then it would be a fail on the audit process for the governance matters. And sorry, members of the public, if you wonder why I'm talking funny, I had surgery on my jaw and sinuses about 10 days ago, so I've got stitches running through the roof of my mouth, and I'm in quite a lot of pain, so apologies for the hand holding the side of my face. I'm trying to stop myself crying. But if you need me to repeat anything or whatever, just wave at me and let me know.
To be fair, we need to adopt the policy should be in place.
Yeah, we should have.
Okay, so who is proposing that?
Yeah.
And again, is everyone in agreement? Thank you.
Public participation. Is there anybody from the public who wants to say anything?
There was an action put on at the last meeting to put potholes on the agenda. You said they were paid.
I'll hold my hand up. That's my fault. I did the papers the day that I was going into hospital. Thank you. And I do acknowledge it's my fault and it will be on the next agenda.
I know it's on the new website that Mr. Troughton's interests 2019. I believe your wife has a new position, and you probably have as well.
That was on my. I'd submitted that over a year ago. There were two changes. One is I've got a different job, and the other is obviously my wife is Cumberland Council now.
So there is a new interest
It's
that needs to go on
Yeah.
the website.
It's probably with Cumberland, as they are transitioning at the moment, the DPI forms are not back up on their website yet. They are aware of that and they are working on it. I don't have a timescale yet on when those will go live again.
For a long time. Mr. Harvey.
Yeah. Well, they were submitted, as I said, they were submitted a long time ago.
Nick, can I update the council on the Rugby Union Club's current position?
Yep.
Since I last spoke to you, the club's position has deteriorated both financially and structurally. And obviously, the Parish Council has failed in its obligation to drain the pond. We did give serious thought, and we met up with our legal advisors to pursue the legal action that we've been pressing for a while. And we haven't done that yet for a number of reasons. But if I just take a couple of steps back and bring you up to date with regards to the arrangements that we had with the football club and the sort of finance, the facilities agreement that we had with them. I made you aware that Bransty had stopped paying their monthly direct debit to enable them to use the facilities. They did that in October. And we sort of held the thing in abeyance for a while. Since then, Bransty have decided to leave completely, primarily because the pitch is not available and doesn't look as if it's going to be available for the foreseeable future. So they've kind of taken their bat away. It isn't entirely as a result of the pond, but obviously that instigated the whole thing, and therefore the rugby club has lost that income in the long run, which is a big problem to us. We've subsequently entered into an arrangement with another football club, and that was due to take place around now. The first game's on the 24th of April. Clearly we're not going to be able to do that, and therefore we're going to lose the prospective income from that football club coming again. So it's a bit of a double whammy from the rugby club's viewpoint. And there's a third and more disturbing one, that we have another football club who are interested in coming along, but we obviously can't enter into any arrangements with them until the pond situation is resolved. We started discussions with these two football clubs. In fact, one of them we have an agreement with. The other one, it's an agreement pending which we can't take forward as a result of the pitch. Now, as a consequence of the Parish Council reneging on its deal to drain the pond and therefore keep the pitch facilities available, that's posed us a big problem. I did indicate in a letter to the Secretary that the rugby club would start commencing the legal action. But we stepped back from that for, as I say, a number of reasons. The primary one, I think, is I don't think it's the right thing for the rugby club to do to pursue the Parish Council. And the secondary one is that it's going to cost us an awful lot of money up front in legal costs, which we're quite clear upon now. Our legal advice is that we are highly likely to succeed in legal action against the Parish Council. And indeed, if we were successful, we would recoup our costs. But we decided not to press that button. We've got it all lined up, but decided not to press that button until we had a conversation with you all tonight about what the Parish Council proposes now, in the light of the fact that the drainage scheme that was part of the agreement is no longer going to be pursued. Now, the rugby club feel that the solution, when we get to June or potentially July, and the ground's hard enough for the pond to be refilled and the new drainage channel to be put in, will actually solve the problem. But clearly, we've got a massive issue now in that we're losing very significant income on a weekly basis. The prospective income from the agreement that we have with an existing football team is probably in the realms of 200 quid a week. We're not going to be able to allow them to play on that pitch because it's not playable. And then the potential lost income from another facilities agreement that we're hoping to sign but now can't is another couple of hundred to, well, certainly of 400 quid a month is what we've been indicating that we feel that'll come. So we also initially offered to help resolve the fact that the volunteers stepped back and decided not to continue to drain the pond. We put forward a suggestion that the rugby club could actually step in. But when we looked into the detail of the effort required and the prospective costs involved in draining that pond, and we got some indications from third-party contractors what they would charge, and it's approaching £1,000 a week. So clearly, the rugby club's not in a position to kind of help that, to try and push that thing forward. Now, whether the parish council need or can spend £1,000 a week to get that, because it's gone on for 4 weeks now, so the damage is really done, where the drainage hasn't taken place. I think obviously the other issue is the fact that the pond itself is inherently dangerous, and can the members of the parish council sort of sleep at night while it is in its current condition? So, but to spend, it's looking like a 4-figure sum to drain that on a weekly basis doesn't seem appropriate either. So I thought we'd bring these problems to the meeting and not pursue the legal action, but continue to leave the legal action on the table, because the rugby club's going to have to do something here, otherwise we're going to bleed to death. And clearly, I've been saying these statements since last July, when all this lot really kind of blew up. And here we are, approaching May, and the situation is just not resolved. You're going to kill the rugby club unless we have some proactive action to get the thing sorted. So the rugby club, as I said, we've got currently, I've said to the legal advisors, don't press the button yet. We'll bring this to the meeting to see what the parish council have got to offer, basically. But the rugby club, and I've been saying this for a while, is not in a great financial position, and its long-term strategic position, because people are going to stop talking to us about the utilisation of the pitches, is not great. So we need something to happen.
Yeah, well, thanks. That's a very clear statement. We've got it on the agenda to discuss later on. So
why is it always later on? Why is it always later on? It seems to be the biggest agenda, but you're saying to leave till the last minute.
It's every time. It's 10 months. 10 months exactly this month.
The same is sitting there. But what I'm saying is it's 10 to 12 months of us, volunteers, trying to keep this spot afloat.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. That's what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
And everything we get off this is, oh, we'll discuss it at the end. We'll discuss it further later on. I'm sorry, but it's bollocks.
yeah, well,
See,
sorry, it is
I
partly
think in
procedural.
terms of what we would like out of this,
Yeah.
I don't think it's sensible for us to ask you, look, to spend £1,000 a week to drain that pond. If you're not in a position to do that, clearly you can't leave the pond as it is, because it's massively dangerous. So you need to bring onto the agenda some sort of fencing arrangement to that, and also some sort of contribution that you're prepared to make to the rugby club. And we would seek that on a direct debit on a weekly basis. So I think it's the elephant in the room, and you really need to come up with some solutions on that. otherwise you're going to force us into doing what we don't want to do, which is spend the last remnants of our money suing you and have to wait until we win the case before we can get all that money back, let alone the prospective damages that you're causing to the club. So you really need to make some decisions sharpish.
It's a lot to walk effectively. Prior to filming.
10 months ago.
It's just got to be swept under the carpet, really. That's all they want to do, they sweep it under the carpet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, if I were
the
parish
county council there.
One person at a time.
I've wrote you twice, Mrs. Trout, you haven't answered my letter.
One person at a time.
She hasn't answered that. I've wrote twice with the problems we've got in, asking if you could help. And you haven't answered either letter.
No comment.
No comment.
No comment.
Sorry, I'm not a parish councillor, and that's not a parish councillor.
Your window overlooks that pond. You're a resident chairman.
You're a resident.
You're a resident of the parish.
You're a parishioner.
You must have an opinion.
So while you're sitting there, you're taking notes. You've sat and took notes while Ray's been written.
No, I've written a report.
So why are you here?
I've written a report for the meeting.
Okay. Sorry, Ray, you were trying to speak.
I mean, if I were a parish councillor, and I'm glad I'm not, I would find it really difficult to sleep at night with the current state of that pond.
Exactly.
And we have had some health and safety issues in the endeavour to try and drain it. And it's clear if you fall into that pond, with the wall sides of it, it's really difficult to get out even as an adult. So I think we've talked about this for an awful long time. And people have mentioned, you know, is it going to take an accident to get this sorted? I really think we're in that territory. That pond is now, what, 8 to 10 foot deep and 20 metres long. It's criminal, the position that
I
we've
just
found
think that
ourselves.
the parish council which in place now will be a bit more proactive in addressing the situation to the one that's dealt with, you know.
Well, I hope you are, Dave, and I think you need to
I'd
decide.
try for 12 months to sort it out.
I think you need to decide to fence it to get it safe, and then make a contribution to the rugby club before we are forced to do something we desperately don't want to do. And ultimately, that'll just drain money out of the parish council until you're able to sue somebody else. But you know, this thing will cost an awful lot of money up front, is what I'm being told, which has made us very nervous. But we will win. I mean, it's very, very clear legal advice that if you take this on, you'll win. But I just don't see the point in spending the last remnants of the club funds to get us into that position.
Okay.
Perhaps you would make a personal contribution to this, Mr. Trout, because you're a person who caused a lot of this.
No, I have not personally.
12 months delay.
Okay.
You've sat there nodding like you're doing now for 12 months. Perhaps you could maybe make a personal donation before you leave the parish council.
Thank you.
Perhaps you
Any
could help
other
with
comment?
volunteer with the
So
pump,
that's a
could you?
no.
You could help with the pumping out the water, could you?
Yeah,
Rather than leaving your old age pensioners.
volunteering.
Old age pensions were doing that. 70-year-olds discussing.
75-year-old.
So here's
Discussing.
asked you a question, right? You keep on saying you're going to leave it till later on. You need something resolved. Every other time where I've ever seen you've stood back and watched everybody else do everything for you, even though it's completely your fault.
No, it's
Well,
not.
you can't answer him now, and you won't be able to answer him
You've
later on.
delayed and obfuscated for a year.
We want to hear you saying something about what's going to be done. You
Yeah,
didn't say
well,
anything.
it's further down the agenda. We can move it up the agenda if you want, but that's the point. I was asking if there's any other comment from the public before we close the public participation. Sorry, the gentleman in the back there.
This is
Can
right.
I raise another flooding issue, which is a concern? On the new development, they have recently been pumping out from the drain, there's a manhole there, they've been pumping out from that, the pipes are going off across the field. Further across near Cherry Trees Bungalow, there's another manhole cover, and to my knowledge, that water was flowing out of that certainly prior to Storm Desmond, and I believe that when the railway was there, there must have been a drain which went between the two manholes, one on new development, the other one across by cherry trees. Now, if there was a drain there, that would be a watercourse, and it should be the responsibility of the landowners. That will be the people who bought the field and also the farmer further on to maintain that drain. I think it's called riparian responsibilities. Now, I think the parish council ought to keep an eye on this because the drain should be maintained, and they should perhaps involve, I don't know where the flood prevention officer will be situated now. I assume it'll be under the new Cumberland Council. He wrote a report after Storm Desmond, which indicated there was a block in the drain which went across the school field. And that was the cause of the flooding that they get in the dip there. Now, there's also been flooding at Station House, which I understand is the lowest point in the village. There was a programme on Rip Off Britain, which this clearly demonstrated. And I don't think it's been resolved as yet. They're now actually building a moat around Station House, which I think will help prevent flooding actually in Station House. But I think the parish council ought to keep an eye on this situation and watch it, perhaps involve the flood prevention officer, who could also be involved with the drainage on the allotments and the which is affecting the rugby field. And I would be grateful if the parish council would keep an eye on this and watch it and see whether anything further needs to be done, and perhaps involve the flood prevention officer to give advice and help on this.
And certainly the flood prevention officer was involved. Certainly he knows about the issues at the Station House, and all the way along there there's a drain which has been disrupted by the development of Parkfields, and also by I've seen a letter which states there's an illegal connection into the drain from the Parkfields estate into that main sewer, which is causing some of the problems with the amount of water which is in there. The parish council raised it when the 4 houses were being built on School Brow, and were basically told they didn't know anything about drainage, which may be true, but certainly the issues which arose on the School Brow with the footpath flooding were caused by the fact that Copeland Borough Council didn't enforce their planning rules when they put it in place. They've looked at the plans for that area, and they put in sort of what they believe to be sufficient mitigating measures for the drainage for that area. And whether or not they actually enforced them, or whether or not those were sufficient, time will tell.
Too late.
It's too late, yeah.
Well, certainly all I want is the parish council to keep an eye on the situation and see that anything that needs to be enforced is enforced.
Keep on top of it.
You couldn't keep on top of this part of it.
That's exactly why I said that.
Plenty about the drainage over there. What's got nothing to do with you? It's something to do with you. Don't say they're not about it.
We definitely should come on the health and safety executive. Should be investigating this. So can the parish council get in touch with the health and safety executive to find out what's happening?
Sorry, could you repeat?
I want the parish council to get in touch with the health and safety executive about this pond. We've been going on now for 10 months, and I've got to give the rugby lads credit where it's due. They've been more than brilliant. They've only thing we said that they're doing, thanks to the previous clerk and what they did with it, the boys' club, we're still fighting on 10 months down the line. You were told you were going to June last year to fence it up prior to filling in.
Could have been resolved 8 months ago.
Could have been. No, they said, oh, we've got to wait for land to dry.
When they could have got a digger on and got the drain done and got it all
We have
sorted.
to now.
And then it isn't like they didn't know. They were
All
told.
of us left the June meeting thinking it was getting filled in before the school holidays. Councillors, when it was dry, it would have happened.
And this was the Thornley Boys Club that's caused this.
Yeah.
More than Northern Lake with it.
Can anybody explain why this has never been done? You know, this is gonna. I know I haven't attended that many meetings, but it's been a topic in any meeting now.
I can answer it for you.
And you know, it's,
I can answer you why it hasn't been done. Because of the people who were sitting up there.
Yeah, well,
that's why it hasn't been done.
Because the fright was going to pay for
people
it.
around them who were voting against the good people who were trying to get it resolved.
I know David's done an awful lot on Facebook about it. You've been going on about it.
But to be honest with you, Phil very decided right. And I'm not knocking there for what he said, because he's right.
He's exactly
He's 100% right.
Yeah.
But the parish council, I think it's split in two sides. There's the people who didn't want to do anything about it, and there's the people that did. There's two sides to it.
Yeah.
The people that didn't want to do it.
The actual answer to your question is that after the June meeting, there was the borough council got involved, and they said there's nothing to be done on the site.
Nothing at all to do with it.
Nothing.
That's what you told them. Nobody was interested.
You couldn't put a fence up.
The people that don't must be responsible for it. And that's the only answer is the people that dug the hole have to fill it in and sort it out.
Nick,
Did you say that? To pay for it.
What did you say? Are the parish council going to aggressively pursue the two people responsible for the costs involved in putting all this right or not?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Is that a
Yes.
think about it. We've actually asked you for months and months and months to pursue them. We've asked you for months and months and months to ask them to put a fence up, to pump it out. We've asked you to get them to pump it out, and you just refuse to do anything. I hope you offer a sincere apology when you leave tonight, because you're a disgrace.
Worst chairman there's ever been.
You've cost this parish approximately 20,000 quid.
They couldn't care less about what went on. All you're doing is trying to get yourself out of it. Same as you have a mate who was sitting there. That's what you're trying to do. At the end of the day, right, people are suffering over it. You're not even bothered. When we asked them to pump the pond out, they wouldn't even do it, so it took holidays to do it.
Public participation bit. Okay.
Right, so here's an issue then. All of this started with you and Chris Shaw sitting there, reliant upon calc. Now I think that the parish council should get their heads together and pursue calc for gross incompetence and lack of training and lies that have been told multiple times, and notes that were illegally taken, voting when they shouldn't, allowing people to vote when they shouldn't have voted. It's a catalogue of disasters. And I know Chris Shaw's lost his wife, but empathy ends when you, as a parish council, are going to lose the parish tens of thousands of pounds. And I want to know from our new councillor who sits opposite the new development, what is she going to do about the new development? Because he's rode roughshod over all the health and safety.
And the people at the parish.
And the parish.
They pushed the parish boundaries out. Oakland.
Yeah.
No, they changed the development area. That's what
Oh no, they didn't.
Yeah,
I've got a copy of the 2013 agreement, and then on the I've got another copy of the 2013 agreement that shows it being extended to allow the development. And they openly admitted they tried to shut me down by accusing me of pushing me luck legally. But the point of fact was, when I under the Freedom of Information Act, what they said was they got legal and professional advice. they didn't. So they forced that development through. So the people of Moresby are now screwed because of the what can be only described as dodging.
Jesus was sold for 30 pieces of silver.
Correct, and the schools are guilty of that.
You can't say
They spoke in the meeting that they shouldn't have done.
I can't say there was no corruption, Mr. Sewell, because at the end of the day, they pulled the wool over our eyes when they changed all the minutes. So if the minutes stood, the accurate minutes stood, what we asked for has to be changed.
Yeah.
They looked at us over here and said, yeah, we're changing them now, we're changing them now. Then when they've gone in, they weren't, which like the June one, for an example, if you hadn't done that corruption that you've done, again, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same as every single thing that's going on in this village.
We've got a school teacher who comes in and pleads poverty and asks for money to help him out. He allowed them to dig on the land where all the kids had planted all the trees. Can you remember when I got here and I got my daughter sent and she got loads from the Woodland Trust? I told Ross, and he said, "Oh, do we?" And so I talked to my daughter, and they've got hundreds of trees. The kids planted them all. They've now been destroyed. Part of them have been destroyed by the developer. Opposite the club, the old Moresby club, there's a conifer there, stood for donkey's years. All the siding has been chopped off and was just thrown on the ground and just left. You know, I want to know why Ross was approached twice, or him taking any interest in why the trees were being pulled up. No interest. On the grapevine, somebody said he was waiting for his 20 car parking spaces. The
development of Cumberland Council lives 50 yards away from the development, so perhaps things will improve now.
No.
Okay.
Well, there's no health and safety on that side, because the Monday before the schools broke up, the children were running the gauntlet of, because they closed the bottom pavement and they were putting Harry's fencing up, and the men unloading the lorry with the Harry's fencing as the children were walking to school. There's no health and safety on there. So I think the parish council need to press for safety for the children of that school coming and going to school. And that
well, that's the person to speak to.
The safety of the children is being compromised.
Look, I'm sorry, I will say something when I'm asked to speak as a Cumberland councillor. This is public participation where you have a right to make comments. Later on the agenda, the parish council do their discussion, and that's why it's later on the agenda. This is public participation. It's not for me to answer questions, because I'm not a parish councillor.
It's part of your job not to answer the letter, and just tell me that. You just
I will
ignore
address
two
your
letters
issues when I am asked to speak.
That's what the two letters you didn't answer.
The county council are getting in touch with the health and safety executive officer. There's children's lives at risk.
What can the parish council do?
Look, you're able to make some comments now, and then the parish council will address their issues, and the Cumberland council will address their issues.
Nick, what can the parish council do to help sort out the children's safety coming and going to school?
Right now.
It's appalling. And I had one of the developers' wives get at me because I had said something about it.
Well, I mean, the point is that the parish council is not a doesn't have the responsibility, but we can certainly complain to the I presume the Cumberland council about it. Yeah.
In writing?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can discuss that.
Okay. Yeah, just back to process here. When the public participation is completed, do you then have the parish council meeting itself?
Yeah.
And can because I have a feeling this is going to go on an awful long time. My interest here is only from the rugby club's viewpoint. Will that include a proposal to deal with what the rugby club are currently saying, which is we need some short-term finance to prevent us from pursuing the legal action?
We'll certainly discuss that.
And will you come up with a proposal? And can we expect a proposal?
No.
Will actually prevent us. What I'm getting at really is I'm going to end up coming back because I feel that the meeting's going to drift here to come to a time frame again where I'll meet our legal representatives and we will indicate, I've done this on 3 or 4 occasions and every time we've walked away from the brink on the basis that the parish council are going to do something to get us beyond it. So I'm going to leave the meeting in the not too distant future, and my expectations are that the parish council will come up with a proposal that will prevent us pursuing legal action. And I want to meet our lawyers at the end of this month, and we will commence the legal action at that juncture, unless we get a proposal from you that deals with the current unsatisfactory situation on the pond. Now we recognise we've got a solution that's probably going to be put in place in June, July, when the ground hardens. And so my real question is, will there be a proposal from the parish council that makes a contribution to shore the rugby club's losses in that interim period from the 16th of March until whenever the thing gets sorted? We thank you for the previous contribution, but obviously you've let us down badly by not draining the pond as you said you would to prevent our legal action last time. So I think just for clarity, I know you're going to have a meeting and a discussion. We expect a proposal coming from you that will mitigate some of our financial losses.
Your request is quite clear. We'll discuss it when we get to it. Okay?
So where are you in your pursuit of the Thornley?
It's okay. So
what they're trying to see is all the meetings been about for the last 12 months has been the pond, and then later on in it has been about the rugby club losing money. Right? I believe I know there's other stuff. I understand doctors saying and yourselves and all that. The most two important things here is getting the pond, who's paying for the pond, what's happening with that, and also what's happening with the rugby club.
That's correct.
So it's just going on again. We've spent 40 minutes now, and realistically speaking, we've only really dealt with these issues over these last 12 months anyway, so I think it would be good if we could maybe skip some of here and then start to talk about the situation which Ray's asking and which we're asking about the allotments and about the pond. I don't think the rest of it, at the moment, nothing's going to get done with the rest of it anyway, so just want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about trying to get to the end of this.
Yeah, well, yeah, if we could just get a move on. You're quite right. We'd be going round and round in circles. We need to just get a move on, and we can skip down the agenda. The next item on the agenda is the police report. We have nothing. Cumberland Authority reports. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, well, I've been post for a grand total of 11 days, so strangely haven't changed the world. The AGM. I haven't.
They didn't have to pay.
It was a shadow authority to try and get in place all the things that were needed for day one, and yeah, I've been working hard on that. But as far as being a councillor with representing you, I've been in place for 11 days. Prior to that, you had a Cumberland councillor and you had a Copeland Borough councillor. Councillor Minshaw and I have got a date handed diaried in so he can hand over all the Copeland issues. It will surprise you that I've had absolutely no contact whatsoever with my Cumbria County Council counterpart and don't really expect to. A lot of the issues you've been talking about so far around highways, etc., flooding, were the issues that I handed over to him in 2017. So I'm so pleased that progress has been made. I will say that if you contact me in general, I will get back to you. There are people in this room who have contacted me and I have passed on their concerns to the relevant councillor or the relevant authority, depending on what you've contacted
So you do
me
answer
about.
letters?
However, if you write me a letter that basically says your husband is an idiot, do something about it.
The
I am
letter
not
didn't say
likely to respond to that.
The letter didn't say that.
And if I
The letter
do
was
get,
complete and utter truth.
if you get a letter which involves a family member, then you would pass it on to someone else. I cannot deal
So you
with
passed
an
it on?
issue that is involving a family member. and I will say that, and I'm going to park that there because I have had more than one letter that is inappropriate, and I can.
Have you ever thought to question yourself why?
My role as a councillor is to represent you. I was elected by you and others to represent you. Hang on, wait. I was elected to represent you and others. That is my role. Whether you voted for me or not, I will represent you. I will take forward the issues you do. But there are processes where it is inappropriate for you to deal with things. And that is why we declare interest at meetings. That's why we have a register of interests and so on. And that is why if there is something that involves you, so if I sat on planning and there was an issue to do with that plot opposite, then obviously I would excuse myself from that meeting and have nothing to do with it. If you write me letters on things that are to do with my husband, then obviously I need to excuse myself from that.
You were,
that will
only asking for your opinion.
Forward,
that was all.
and there are procedures to deal with that. I have been in place for 11 days. I will also say that my normal work night is Mondays, which is why I haven't been to very many parish councils. You'll notice I've been to the ones where your meeting hasn't been on a Monday.
Some of them, please.
Right, the issues about flooding. Gentleman over there, I'm sorry I don't know your name. You're absolutely right about the development boundary. Copeland shamelessly used a draft, non-consulted on version of the local development plan to allow that development to go ahead. Those of you who went to the initial planning meetings will know that I spoke up at that meeting and said that was the case, that the extant development plan had that outside the development area, was not a development thing. The local councillor objected, the county council objected, the parish council objected. Copeland never ever adopted that draft plan, but they pushed through that planning just as you said. And that was against the advice of Highways, and that was against the advice of their own flooding officer. So you're right, that development was absolutely pushed through. And there are consequential issues. The drainage in Moresby Parish as a whole has been a mess since, not since the railway went, because the railway was there, the embankment stayed, and the drainage ditches which were either side of, those of you who remember the railway will remember you had a railway on a slight embankment, and either side there were drainage ditches, and they ran all the way through the village, and you can still see them where it's not developed. And that worked up until the point, even though they weren't maintained, that worked up until the point when those parcels of land that traversed the railway line were sold off. So once they started developing park fields and so on, then that disrupted that drainage down, and that's what's led to, you know, when the new developments on Schoolbrow were done, the parish council jokingly wanted to call that Swamp View because everybody knew that that flooded, and it was, oh no, it will be fine. And the school pushed back against that, and they wrote to the planning officer and said it wasn't okay. And there's all sorts of issues that come from selling off plots that go across the railway so the drainage can't go through the village. And a lot of our problems come from that, because once you get rid of that drainage ditch, you need to replace it with something that takes all the water that's coming all the way down the hill. Okay, and that has never happened. And Copeland have been have compounded that, because every lot of development that's taken place in this village. This village is about twice the size of when I moved here 25 years ago. Every lot of development that's taken place has had to show how it deals with drainage. Unfortunately, every lot of development has shown how it's dealt with the drainage of the development. Not how that will affect what happens downstream. So we've got lovely development of park fields and the birds that goes into the original sewer. And there's
Excuse
no
me, I
way
think you're playing the
that's-
time game.
No,
I think you're playing the time game.
Sorry, you want me to answer your questions, I will answer your questions, but I need to get through this. Because it helps you understand what we've got to fight against and what has not been happening. For 6 years I have not been your councillor, and for 6 years I have not been able to tap into the right places to do this. The last planning meeting, I was not even asked to go and talk at it, despite having asked to go and speak. So those of you who went to the original planning meetings will know that I spoke up, that I spoke about drainage, that I spoke about highways, and I spoke about how it was outside the development area. And I did that as your Copeland councillor, and I did that as a Copeland councillor. I wasn't your Copeland councillor, and I did that as, when we first started, I was a county councillor. But in the intervening time, nobody has been doing that for you in the same way. Copeland has decided that they're going to extend the development area anyway, and then, as you said, you've been told that you're going against the law. Well, actually, Copeland have been told that they don't have a legitimate development plan in place because they never adopted the one that was consulted on.
So can anything be done about the development?
The developer would have a very strong legal case against Copeland, which would then, yeah, but it's. I don't know is the answer, but there is things that can be done because they have been asked as part of their original planning application that they must have adequate drainage in place and it must be there. Sort of.
I think if there's, this is all hinting on a bit of corruption going on here. If you're extending the boundaries illegally, there's no drainage properly going into anywhere.
No, that's not quite right.
Well, that's what it sounded like to me.
The drainage has, every time the developments have been asked to show how their drainage deals with the water that is flowing onto their patch, and they've done everything that's asked of them. The problem that we've got is we've had piecemeal development, and each development has had adequate drainage to drain it, but it's still going into what is now an inadequate drain. So if you've only put a 6-bore pipe in, and you keep putting lots more 6-bore pipes going into it, eventually your 6-bore pipe's going to be overwhelmed. You need a 12-bore, don't you? Yeah? And effectively what we've got is we've got the original piping for when most of the village was built and put onto main drainage, but we've got a village that's now twice the size, all draining beautifully and effectively into it. It's not helped by the fact that my brain's gone dead. What's the development on the other side of the road? Opposite the terrace, Winston, thank you. Their drainage was not put in place properly, and that wasn't inspected properly throughout its development. I can't prove that it's incorrect, but Copeland certainly can't prove it is correct because they didn't send out their developers at the right times of the development process. So there's a mess that's been a long time in the making here. And going back to the original, somebody said about they're pumping out at the moment. They hit a water main. Everybody knows they hit a water main, don't they? Because the water went off. And they produced a pond in about 3 milliseconds.
School had to be closed and they're not compensating school.
So they did do that. They did hit that. they are aware of what goes through that field, strangely. So why on earth they managed to hit a water main, I don't know, unless
it turned out it was a grey pipe, and they were told to put into it because it was the telephone cables, and they were going to link cables. But it turned out somebody put a water main in there that actually only supplies the school. And turn everything off to kill it.
Yeah.
I didn't realise you were such an expert, Julian. Julian isn't, Julian.
Yeah. Because
maybe you can appreciate what we're going on about this drain, because it's a smaller scale. It just sounds exactly very, very similar to what you're saying about the bigger scale. So maybe you are the person to sort this problem out for us.
So the new development, I will be keeping, obviously, you know, I'm declaring interest because I can see the blimmin' thing, but I will keep fighting to make sure that they keep within their planning, and I will particularly keep fighting because they're trying to get over their original, if you remember, the original planning consent wasn't for a two-phase scheme. So the plot they're developing at the moment and the plot the other side of the school, and as part of that, somebody said about his 6 car parking spaces.
20.
Yeah, all right, 20. I can't remember, but there was supposed to be adequate parking for the school, no entrances onto school brow, drainage, all that sort of thing within the planning agreement that went forward. They are now developing only half the site, and this is why I wanted to go to the planning meeting, because some of those things, because they're only developing half the site, have disappeared off their planning agreement. We need to keep a very close eye on that. I'm not sitting on planning, unless something changes before Thursday. I'm not sitting on planning, which means I am free to go to planning meetings and speak up. If you sit on planning, you can't do that. And I will continue to fight to say this is not what was the agreement. If we need to take it back to planning, then we will, and I will be writing to planning to say what is happening with that site, because it's outside of the development boundary. What is happening with the local plan? That sort of thing.
Can I just, you obviously looked at the plans and you've seen them at outside development. But the periphery of that outside development has now been extended yet again because they put an attenuation basin in, which isn't in the original plan.
Yes.
The attenuation.
To be fair, you're right. The attenuation basin wasn't in the original plan, but those of us who can actually read and have any common sense realise that their plans for flooding gave them about 3 millimetres leeway, and that for once for me is not an exaggeration, is that there was so little leeway within their flood attenuation plans for the development that if the rain had fallen in 10 minutes rather than 20 minutes, it would have overwhelmed it. And it was that close. So the attenuation basin has been put into the plans as a result of lobbying, in part by the parish council, about what was in those plans to start with, because they were rubbish, absolutely rubbish.
Well, the guy who the development, Rainbow, his son is supposed to be managing the health and safety of the attenuation. How does that come out? And further to that, Gillian, the second development's got its go-ahead, but there isn't an attenuation based on that. So there's going to be yet another attenuation basin, which is going to go the top end of the school, which then will connect up to the first attenuation basin, and then will discharge into Low Moresby. And the people in Low Moresby will be really chuffed.
Part of the point of the attenuation basins is supposed to be about slow release of water, so that you get the rainfall, it goes into the basins, and then it's slow release, like it's gone into the ground and released, which is a replacement for, because that's what would happen if it falls onto the field. It goes onto the field and it slowly drains into the beck, doesn't it, eventually? What an attenuation basin is supposed to do is supposed to replicate that, because that's the problem with the drainage we've got already, is it's really, really efficient at gathering the water that flows and dumping it into rivers, and that's why we get flooding everywhere. So attenuation basins are supposed to replicate what the ground does. But they only work if you put all of the bits in, so the various valves and the slow release stuff that stops it all going. And that's the issue that we've got to make sure happens, is that those things are put in place so they work as they are supposed to work. And that's why we need to keep an eye on that. And I would say that I can't do that by myself. So if you do see that they are putting in stuff, and they're at the point where they're putting in stuff, let me know, because although we can see it from our window, I can't see anything, and I'm thinking you can see across, can't you, sideways? So if you can look across from Churchill and Eden and look across that way, and let me know if you see a next stage of development starting, just pop a note through my door and let me know, because, you know, I'm good, but I'm not clairvoyant. So I will keep that. I am keeping that under review, and I'm also want to have another conversation with the flooding officer who has transferred over to Cumberland. But I don't know how they're going to be organised going forward. But I want to have another conversation with him, because it's 8 years since I sat down with him previously and walked around and asked about things, and I need to refresh my memory, and to find out what's changed since.
So Julian, can the second stage not be stopped, given that the shouldn't have moved the boundary?
Restraining order.
Can it not be stopped?
No, because they have been given planning permission.
But it could be, surely there could be.
Secretary of State could stop it.
You can put a restraining order on them.
Something could be done, surely.
Excuse me, I spoke to David Bocelli. It can't be any more than 5 or 6 years ago. And I was telling him, it's no good what all this stuff you're doing. I told him that then. And he just hasn't done anything ever since. I haven't heard it from him since.
There was a review of, it's going slightly off topic, but there was a review of planning legislation, because as you know, there is this sort of presumption of developer pays, which means that if you make a development that will lead to a load on, whether it's the water course, the electricity, the gas, whatever, you have to pay for that infrastructure. But it only works if you overwhelm it, which means that you can have several lots of 2 houses here, 2 houses there, 3 houses there, but when you get to the last 3 houses, which are the ones that overload it, you're the one that's got to pay for the whole development. So the whole law is made up for when you're essentially building a big development and you've got to do the whole lot and put in a whole new main. And I did feed into that planning review to say there's got to be something for when you're doing piecemeal development, so that the first 2 houses who have no effect on the drainage actually did pay something towards it, so that when you did need the whole new drainage, it wasn't the last 2 houses that paid the whole lot, everybody had spread the load. And I got word back from our MP that that's not how planning worked, which was kind of my point, but there we go. Anyway, let's move on before this is the entire meeting, because you want to talk about a pond. Just a quick thing about highways. You're all aware that 595 is going to be shutting every weekend from, I've forgotten the date, is it 11th of May? 10th of May, it's early May.
Put the notice in the notice board.
So, there is a local diversion which will come into Moresby Parks and then turn right down Schoolbrow and then go onto the pit road, so that traffic can get to from Workington to Moresby Parks. The actual diversion, which will be signposted from the M6 south of Cumbria, is down the 5086 from Cockermouth to Egremont. So wagons won't be using that route, but light vans will be using that route. Traffic will not be allowed to drive through straight through Moresby Parks, and we will have an allowance to be able to do that. I'm not sure whether we will actually, but
something changed though, because last night we were about checking all the speed on something.
Yeah. No, I saw
and
the
that has,
highways man.
no, and the highways man has said, no, we've listened to you, everybody is fed in, the parish council fed in, I fed in, Councillor Minshaw fed in, and anybody who's got any sense is fed in. But what they are going to do temporarily is take the chicane out outside school. Now, obviously, that means that on weekdays you could just go down there, but they're going to put a speed camera on. So two things: one, they're going to put a speed camera on, so that should stop people speeding. But two, there will be a speed camera on Schoolbrow, so you are warned.
They need to put a temporary crossing.
They need to do something with the surface of Schoolbrow before anything happens. It's an absolute disaster.
I've took both my grandsons to Moresby Store, and I'm telling you straight, look out your window, you'll see it's a nightmare.
I know.
The pavement, they're pushing you off the bloody pavement while you walk with your grandkids.
On the 2nd of May, Highways are having a public meeting in here for 2 hours to discuss all the detailed proposals.
I didn't know thank you, I didn't know when that meeting was. And every Friday morning, they are in Part1 Village Hall. So every Friday morning, they are in Part1 Village Hall. And this work has got to happen. We've just got to make sure that it doesn't, it will impact us, and it will impact us for several weekends in a row. And we've got to make sure that it's as best as we can make it. They will be putting ANPR cameras on, so that, like the police have, that read registrations, so that if wagons do try and use that route, they will get it. Now, obviously, they are allowed to come through to make deliveries, but if they just go through, there's one on each end, and they will get fined. The same as people who try to drive through the village, and the same on the other side of the road. For those of you who do walk down to 595 and catch a bus, the buses will be kept running, but we're not quite sure what's happening with things like the X30.
They are on the 2nd of May.
They're between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
We're going to cover all of that. What they're going to do with the buses, the ramps,
yeah,
so
make
it's
sure
useful to press on, because really we've got a couple of pressing issues here.
Yeah, and the last thing is, you talked about Schoolbrow needing sorting before they do that. The flood at the Piker Junction with the nice pothole that's there, they are doing some investigation work to see why that flood is occurring. I haven't been promised that it'll be sorted beforehand, but I said it's got to be, because it's bad enough those of us who drive along there know it's there and we slow down to 10 miles an hour. But if you don't know it's there and it's dark, there will be an accident there.
Did you not get the email saying that the clerk wanted the meeting to last any longer than 2 hours?
Well, she implored us to keep it sharp.
You wanted me to answer your question?
Yeah,
both ways.
You just waffled on.
No, it's what you need to know.
So my contact details are on the Cumberland website, and hopefully I'll have more of a report on some of these issues next time. However, if it's on a Monday, I probably won't be here.
Please schedule all the meetings for Monday.
I know, and that's the problem.
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah.
Shall we move straight to the pond then?
Do we know when it's going to be possible for someone to actually do it? And can we get 3 quotes to put Harris fencing around?
I was going to say that. Why aren't we putting fences?
So in terms of the first point, Clemmy is checking it on a every 2 to 3 day basis at the moment. The ground is drying. I think I spoke to him yesterday or the day before. It is drying, but it is not dry enough, but it is going in the right direction. But he obviously can't give us a date on when it will be dry, depending upon what Mother Nature throws down at us.
He indicated to me it's likely to be in June. Hopefully before then, but it's likely to be in June.
It's absolutely disgusting. That June of last year.
But still, you can't do them.
I know, but there's 10 months and we're still talking about it.
I don't know why it never went up.
Nick, if the parish council would get somebody's fence, and I'll put it
The
up.
two Mr Thornleys were asked to put it up,
Yeah.
and the two Mr Thornleys haven't done anything.
Should
The much
have been
75-year-old pensioners pumping out
Yeah.
the pond that they made.
That's why they get the 50 to 90 feet down.
Well, in fairness, they did take people who's been around.
So where we at? I know, yeah, but where we at?
Yeah.
Yeah, can we just have one meeting of that? Sorry, you were saying?
I was saying all our problems have come from the Thornleys being asked to do the jobs.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything.
The fencing, the filling in of the pond.
Lack of leadership.
Graham, you were about to say something.
I was just going to say that the Thornleys did put 2 bits of washing line round it's also about fencing, which is totally that.
I believe they fenced their own allotments.
Yeah, it's a couple £1,000 back there.
At the end, illegally, make no mistake about that. It's illegal.
Okay.
The allotments have been wrong. The allotments have been issued on one's either side.
Where we at? Sorry. So where exactly are we at?
Just make my case,
Look,
it was allotments.
so what are you trying to say, Mark?
Where are we at with the Thornleys being for the fence, pumping it out, filling it in, the drain, where we at with all this?
That is a decision to be taken
That's a
tonight,
decision to be taken tonight.
as to if you want to appoint legal advice. I have
Well, there's
spoken.
Send them the bill.
Well, they sent a letter to tell them to put the fence up.
I have,
Yes, the short copy.
Yeah.
Well,
Propped it up.
You gave them 3 options, so they didn't
Instead of
choose an
just telling
option.
them to
Did
put
they
the
look-
fence up.
And they agreed with the
They
letter.
say something to us about that had legal advice to step back and do nothing.
3 options.
Said they had legal advice to come here.
Yeah.
Okay.
so we're looking for guidance, see what do you plan, what do you think? So as I say, I've spoken to a firm of solicitors. I've not incurred any costs at the moment. I've just had an initial advice call. The solicitors I have spoken to are a firm called Wellers Headley, who specialise in parish council law. They are the main legal practitioners relating to parish council and local governance. Norman might have come across them before. They would be willing to be appointed as, or retained, sorry, as solicitors for the council to consider pursuing the tenants, the Thornleys, for the costs. That is a decision for yourselves to take tonight. The council have to be aware that if the case is successful, then the legal costs could be recovered from the Thornleys. If the case were not to be successful, the costs of the legal action would be borne by the parish council. And you're looking at costs initially of around £300 per hour for the legal advice. They estimate that after a meeting, an initial meeting, the legal advisors may then be able to make a fixed fee offer for the works to do to get the legal proceedings to a certain point. But they can't do that without the initial meeting. The initial meeting, as I say, will be £600 if it's 2 hours. But as I say, if the case were not successful, the parish council will be bearing the legal costs. A bit like Ray was saying about the rugby club, the legal costs have to be borne upfront by whomever it is that is starting the legal action. And those costs can be extensive. If it was settled out of court in a mitigation settlement, that keeps the costs lower. If the case were to go to court as a civil trial, then we would involve the retention of a barrister, and at that point your costs go up to 4 figures an hour. Yeah.
Thing is,
although the parish council haven't got that kind of
thing is,
we're talking about all this money and giving the rugby club money and paying out money to do these allotments. The parish council haven't got that money, so where are we going to get it from?
That is a problem. You can budget next year. You can set the budget for next year. You can't go into deficit against next year's budget, and then obviously that budget, the precept would then be.
Is it too simplistic just to bill them, just to send a bill to them?
Well, you can send a bill, but they can refuse to pay it.
Yeah, could you just send them a letter saying the solution to this problem is to fence that off in the time being, or pump it out. Send a letter to them instructing them to do it. If they don't do it, put in the letter saying the parish council will then pursue you for all costs involved. They've caused this mess. Why should we as parishioners pay to sort it out?
Yeah, but we still
just as a word of warning, when Mr. Shaw was dismissed from Part1 Council, he claimed 5,200. Part1 Council employed a solicitor and still paid him 5,200. But it cost the Part1 parishioners £3,500 in legal fees.
See, the problem is with it, right, I'm all for pursuing them, right? But if you look at it even straight down the middle, right, sometimes look what you know, it's what you can prove. Now, the minutes have been dictated and destroyed and changed right throughout from June, May, June. And I'm just thinking now is exactly, are we would we win? Because because the proof actually goes against us, and they changed the proof.
I can't comment on that. And, and when I spoke to the solicitor that I spoke to, we spoke for about an hour, I think.
Is it a no win, no fee solicitor we need?
There is not for matters such as this. There is no such thing.
That all was built. That plan was
Proving it.
One of them wasn't.
Proving it. We can prove it in here, talking to each other. We can't prove it on paper.
Of course you can.
Well, you have to take it up.
Yeah,
take it up and
take
give
it
us
up.
some advice.
Why else should we be? Why should we foot the bill for what they're
No,
doing?
I'm not saying that.
So take them to court.
But I'm not an expert on it either. What I'm saying is, it's what you can prove. And at the moment, right, so if you're looking in hindsight, right, I'm all for billing them. I put my hand up 100% for going at them, no problem whatsoever. I'm just trying to get someone out in front of everybody. Sorry. At the end of the day, right, the minutes were manipulated right from June. I mean, it says in the minutes, in the June minutes, May, June minutes, it says that we gave them permission to carry on, which we know that isn't true. But the minutes say that because Mr. Shaw changed the minutes.
And he signed them off.
For a day like today.
He signed them off.
For a day like today. He changed them. Yeah. For a day like today. Now, if that was before that was legally put in the minutes properly, like it was asked on several occasions, we would be standing in a really good place. I'm not too sure how strong we're standing. Now, the only point I'm making is, right, the rugby club is financially in a lot of trouble. They need sorting out. There's a lot of other stuff. There's £10,000 outside of there to be paid, and all this and all that and all the other. I think as a community, I think we need to really think about this. Like,
I think we're going to have to broaden.
I don't know where we're heading with it. And I didn't expect to hear we wouldn't get a no win, no fee. I didn't expect that.
Well, I'll tell you what you are heading for if that isn't fenced off a manslaughter charge.
Yes.
Graham, you were saying something?
I was just saying that it's a grey area legally, and I think it's just going to end up in spiralling costs. I personally would like to see them have a good year because they've done the damage.
We'll just bill them.
We should concentrate at first. Obviously, we can't do anything until the ground dries up. Sort the problem with the drain, alleviate the water, level the ground. I would wholeheartedly agree with trying to help the club as best we can, and then take it from there.
So in terms of the
The main thing, Graham, is keeping this place open. This is the only facility we've got in the village for the community. We've got to keep this place open regardless of anything.
Yeah, they've been bank of rights for 12 months when I'm still going on about it. We're still going on about it. We still haven't got the decision. And at the end of the day, there's other stuff that needs sorted out. This club and this field needs sorted out.
in terms of the safety aspect of the pond, so you can postpone taking a decision whether you want to take legal action, and that might be a prudent thing to do at the moment because of the possible costs involved. You could allocate a budget tonight for me to get a quotation or quotations depending upon the price. So public procurement rules specify how many quotes I have to get depending upon how much something costs. So I have no idea how much Harris fencing is going to cost. It's not something I've looked to get.
£1,000.
Okay, so if it's £1,000,
do you not pay weekly for the Harris?
You can hire it. I can't remember. Can you remember right?
So we can either look to buy Harris fencing, I'm assuming, or you can hire Harris fencing. The council could set a budget tonight, and I can get the relevant number of quotes to either buy or hire, whichever you wish me to do. And then I can either get quotes for somebody to install, or Kevin, did you just say
if
that
the parish council buy the Harris fencing, I'll put it be done.
So there's a kind offer there for labour. So you can set that budget. I can get the quotes. I can place the order. I can get quotes for both if you wish.
Could we talk to Clemmy Mossop? Because if he is doing these jobs, surely he'll have the stock of Harris fencing.
He'd probably be the first person I'd speak to. It just depends on how much it comes in as to how many other quotes I have to get to prove value for money.
We're only looking at
you're
so
going to dig in
I got the quotes,
you're prepared to take the chance and just let them go at it
so
now.
if council wants to make that resolution, if somebody wants to propose and second the resolution and give me a budget. Okay, so as I say, I don't have any baseline on Harris fencing, so what would be a reasonable budget for you to delegate to me so that I can get this sorted as soon as possible? £1,000, £1,200?
Around £1,000.
£1,000?
It's about that week.
The other thing was I get a quarter of 100 legs because I use them to show. I use some
Okay, who was the proposal and second? Sorry.
Graham and Irene.
Graham and Irene. And was everyone in favour of that? And then, are you happy that once I've got that organised, if I liaise with Kevin to get it put in, is that okay?
Yeah.
And then, do you want to defer a decision relating to legal action until we've got?
I think we should still send them a letter. We should send them a letter.
By all means, send them a
letter. I think
just my time.
I mean, I don't think that this here, right, about this Harris fencing and about this letter and about subsuing. I don't think it's just to do with these people in this side here. I think it's to do with everybody in this room here. Like, what does everybody else think? What does everybody else think?
I would think it's worth.
It's 8 months ago and Shaw copied it. It's as simple as that. Exactly the same conversation.
Yeah.
Exactly 8 months ago.
You've got a guy relying on calc.
And he backed Shaw up as well.
No, Gordon, you're not where you're wrong. It isn't calc that was incompetent. Basically, we had an issue insofar as, because I know the chairman of calc and he's very professional. But the problem was, he couldn't overrule Chris because Chris was on the executive committee. That was the issue. So in effect, Chris was advising himself. He wasn't advising calc. Chris was advising himself because Chris was on the executive committee of calc. And he hadn't been on the executive committee for 20 years.
Yeah. So there you are, there's your summation of the problem.
That was the issue. That when we went to calc were referring back to Chris because Chris was a representative. You see where I'm coming from?
Why is calc hiding behind the Freedom of Information Act then?
Robert with keys to the bank.
The hide
Robert
behind the
with keys
Freedom
to
of
the bank.
Information Act. I asked a specific question about it, and they just poo-pooed it. And I also asked calc about what sort of monitoring they did on their individuals who they put up as executives, as you call them, What's the monitoring? Never received anything back about that. Now they're taking money from every single person in this village and all across the county. I think it's about £600,000 to come here and more. And what do? They have somebody in place who's grossly incompetent. He's been proved. He tried to deny the fact that he chose to be their fault.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
This is a
side issue. Everybody else will be discussing.
Yeah. So Mark, you
The question if anybody else has a view about what you do regarding Harris Fenton. Harris Fenton's £5.50 a square metre. Just doing a quick calculation there, it says you're likely to need about £1,400, £1,500 of hire to take us from now till June. So why don't you propose a budget of £2,000, and if you can get it less than that £2,000, immediately go ahead. Don't wait for another meeting to get the thing sorted. Because otherwise you're going to have another meeting. So if you choose to hire it, whether it's from Clemmy Mossop or another, if you put yourself a £2,000 budget on, you probably get it for that. You'll be able to make a move. You'll be able to do that in the next 2 days. These guys have to be before the end of the week. So you can get past that decision today now.
It's about £1,000 to buy that with the legs and these sort of fire. I've got it now. So if you said £2,000, it's not doing any harm, is it?
Well, you've got to make a decision and get it done.
Yeah.
That's the point.
So I'll still have to get quotes to satisfy the procurement regulations, so I'll have to have them on file. But I have a delegated budget that once I've got that, I can approve it to go ahead, and then I'll liaise with Kevin about
You get an email quote within 24 hours, won't you? So you'll be able to make the decision and get the fence up.
Yeah, so
it's really what we're talking
You don't
about
need
is 2 or 3 days.
You don't need a contractor, you just need a 4-day plan.
I don't do them. Well, it's sale, didn't I try?
It's free there on the internet.
It's on the internet, that's all. Between £25 and £40 and you need the legs.
Yeah, plant hire them out.
Well, I use
The charge, the actual, I have visitors who have stopped using them for the show because we use an awful lot of them. And I used them up until it was £8, but since it's been sunbelt, they actually, they're 200 yards up the road, the same with those at Cockermouth, but they were going to charge me £2,000 to deliver them from Gateshead, even though they were only in Whitehaven.
what I could do with, and it may be that one of you already has this information, is a measurement of how much Harris fencing.
27 panels.
We measured it, it's not long ago.
It's a while since we measured them.
Somebody
can let you know that tomorrow.
It's like Groundhog Day.
I think it was
There's something like that.
I'll work on getting quotes for 30 panels, and then if somebody can have a look at it for me tomorrow, and if you're going to need more than 30 panels, let me know. But I'll work on getting quotes for 30 panels so that I can move it forward, yeah? Okay, and I'll defer the insurance decision.
Could have been done 10 months ago.
Okay, in terms, sorry, I'll defer the decision on legal action. Yeah, in terms of...
What about the club there?
In terms of the insurance, as in the parish council insurance, are not able to help, as I think I said at the last meeting, with the costs of the rectification of the pond, the drainage, etc. But they can recompense the parish council for the money that has been paid out thus far to the rugby club and to Branston Football Club, minus the excess. So the offer from the insurance company at the moment, if the parish council wish to accept it, is £3,650, which is from our insurers, which will come back to the parish council. And then obviously there is now a secondary decision to be taken about whether you continue to support the rugby club. And then of course at that point I would also speak to the insurers about whether they can continue to support us. I do not know the answer to that question at this stage. So,
did you come back after David has to go and advise them again about the working outside?
yeah, I confirmed that to them and they said that was immaterial because the activity had taken place on parish council land, as in it was within the curtilage of the whole allotment site rather than individual allotment plots. It didn't make any difference to their insurance offer or what they could or could not help with. So, just so I don't lose my place, Are you wanting to accept that offer from the insurance company at the moment to get that back into the bank account?
It is just needed an offer though, isn't it? It is just needed because there's more to come.
Advisable to get that money back in our bank account. And then even if we don't get any more audits out,
Sure, we can
spot money.
Yeah.
That's what we might want to do anyway.
Surely you don't take the first offer, right? Surely.
But they've only
I'm suspecting tonight that's going to change.
Has anybody read the policy?
So it's based on actuals, so their offer is based on the actuals that have been displayed from the parish council bank.
But that's going to alter tonight.
So then, if you accept that from them now, I will then go back to them and say, can we then make a secondary claim, either next week, or if what the rugby club are looking for is weekly support, then can we make another claim in a month or 2 months, rather than making a claim a week, because obviously the paperwork burden of making a claim a week.
If it helps,
is costly.
the rugby club would accept a compensation claim based upon a date that we could all guesstimate that the rectification work will be complete. So the rugby club could accept a compensation payment, say till 15th of June, and if it runs beyond that, that's our tough luck, and it gets done before that, that's your tough luck. So if you would consider a compensation arrangement to us covering us to the 15th of June.
How much are you asking for, already?
We're looking at, we've got some matches, we had like, I think it's another five or six matches here that we're due to start next week. And that's also with the bar being open, the height of the pitch. We also can't engage at all with this other football club because we can't offer them anything, which was going to be proposed to be, and I think they were going to accept the £400 a month. So we can't engage in any of that.
But are you going to give them a figure?
Well, I think based upon what we've looked at there, we're talking about March, April, May and June, we're talking about 4 months. So 4 months are losing 400 quid, that's 1,600 quid, plus what we're going to lose from the other. If you would give us another 400 or 500 quid for that, we would settle for 2,200 quid.
I'm up for that one.
Can I propose that we go with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so just
take it out of what we want to do.
Okay, so just because I'm struggling.
Yeah.
So the proposal is to accept the 3,650 from the insurers.
Yeah.
To offer the rugby club another £2,200.
Yeah.
And for me to then seek to put in a secondary insurance claim to try and recover that 2,200. But you are happy to pay that 2,200 even if the answer is that we can't do another insurance claim.
And if we do it to 15th of June, it should be fine by then. We should.
Yeah, and we'll put a date that is to cover till the 15th of June, and then if you can confirm in writing that you're happy with that.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And if so, can I have a vote?
Yeah.
Dave's proposing it. Yeah.
So you're putting us 2 claims, you'll have 2 excesses to claim, won't you? Rather than if it goes in as one, you pay 1 excess.
If we don't get it back, we haven't got it back. And if they don't accept the second claim, we're delaying getting the money back in the first place.
So you're going to pay 2 excesses.
There's a way around that.
I don't know the answer to that, but I am concerned about the parish council's cash flow and getting the money back, knowing the money is coming back, so that comes in.
Trying to get some money back for the money that we're going to pay out.
Because I also know that we're going to pay out Harris fencing.
We're going to pay out for the Harris fencing.
We're going to pay Chloe Mossop at some point, so I also need to protect the parish council's cash flow because it is illegal for a parish council to go into.
Can you at least send us the bill though? Can you at least send them it and give them the opportunity
Send
to
them a
refuse
regular bill. There's a pump to pay. If you pay for the pump, I'll send them that bill, please.
Yeah, tally all of them. Send it with, in a letter. Give them the opportunity. Give them the opportunity to refuse to pay.
They definitely need to be starting getting letters.
Yeah. Give them the opportunity to refuse to pay first.
Send them the bill. You've had to pay for the pump and the petrol already. So please send them the bill back.
Well, there should be billed, because if ever you have to go through a legal route.
Yeah, I
and
think
it's
so.
very
Send all the
difficult.
bills to them. Please.
Do we have any comments on that?
About sending them the bill?
Yes.
I think it's fine to send the bills, but as a parish council, we have to pay them first, because nobody will do it.
Because they haven't physically refused, have they? Because they've never had a bill to refuse.
I mean, put an appeal in there. My understanding was at the last meeting, the parish council's decision was final. They put an appeal in and
That's the reason we withdrew our voluntary labour.
So the appeal is a slightly separate thing.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if there's a proposal and a seconder, I will send a letter to the Thornleys totaling up what's been expended to date and asking them to pay it. But then obviously they have a
Every
right.
single penny should go to their house.
They have a right to
Every
refuse
single
it.
penny.
And then if we do the appeals separately,
Including the
that's okay.
excess on the insurance policy.
So that would, so I need a proposer and a seconder if you want me to do that.
Excuse me, if you send them a bill and they don't pay it, can the parish council take them to county court?
Yeah, but it will cost
That's
us.
what I said.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
no,
small claims.
small claims. Yeah, they used to have calculated in the county court, the tile. They will then set a court date, they'll send the Thornleys the summons. It's up to them to then either say we're going to fight it. You can then go to mediation. If it doesn't go to mediation, it then goes to county court.
They would come with a defence to say that there's no legal basis for you to put that claim on them.
Yeah. Because the minutes don't add it up.
We would still end up in the position, my concern is we'd still end up in the position of having to retain legal advice. Because if they served a counter suit on the parish council, my duty is to keep the parish council legally compliant. I can't defend. I'm not a practising solicitor. So they would then file a counter suit, which would then involve the parish council having to incur legal costs to answer that suit.
It seems to me they're getting off scot-free.
They need to be sent the bill anyway.
It's a lot of help for the chairman
Give them
and
the
the
opportunity
extra.
to refuse to pay.
Well, I think it's worth looking at
Handle
whether
this.
it's the cheapest option. The county courts are cheapest, or actually, giving your...
County courts will cost you 80 quid to take them to court in the first instance. But as soon as they put a defence in, you'd have to respond to that defence and you'd probably need legal assistance. And that's when you're going to be talking large hundreds of pounds.
They would need to say, wouldn't they?
They would need to say
So they think we've got away with it.
Oh yeah, we should send them the bill, yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, as
Yeah,
far as
because
the
you
final
brought it
outcome,
up, yeah.
it's all going to have to be tallied up.
If I went into your garden and done some damage, would you send me a bill to it repair? Well, end of argument, that's it.
Send them
Spanish
the bill.
council land, they've damaged it, they'd have paid.
Is there anything else? Is there anything else to say on this?
No.
I wouldn't rule out legal advice at any point. You know, if that's what it takes at the end of the day, is to go for the legal advice. If
The
you're not,
indication to the rugby club when we were considering pursuing this action against the parish council, that you're in the realms of £8,000 to £10,000 to get that into a court position. Then you're talking barristers. So we have some degree of confidence, which we're obviously we're delighted with your offer there, and we won't be pursuing this, but we had some degree of confidence that we would win that case. But you're basically gambling with a very large multiple of thousands of pounds because you've got the other sides to pay if you win or lose. So you've got to be very careful here. If you start on this legal advice line, you're gonna have to pick a point where you're going to draw the line. And if that is at the court case, then you're probably talking 15 grand of your own costs, potentially more, and the risk of losing, and therefore you pay the other sides. That's your problem, which is kind of where the rugby club was really, and we were just thinking, this is crazy. I think we'd win, but we'd have to fork out so much money up front. So the fact that we've come to a compromise there is really good. But I think the parish council's position against the Thornleys is substantially worse than that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any such thing as a cut and dry case, is there?
Because they could be given the opportunity to appeal from there.
No.
Sure.
You can pay the bills.
They might show the community spirit in appeal.
Did you say it was £600?
Well, not about it before 8 o'clock.
Lex, did you say it was £600 to take some legal advice? Up to a certain point?
That would just be the initial meeting.
Yeah.
But the initial meeting may, obviously it depends upon the content of the meeting, what the fixed figure would be after that. And as Ray says, the risk is that you're talking tens of thousands of pounds.
At least give them the opportunity. They might pay. They might pay.
So
they might pay.
The council has resolved to send them a letter asking to pay. So that action is going to be taken. And I understood that the council wanted to defer the decision of taking legal advice until the next meeting because of the potential cost implications.
Kevin, don't know every last word what's been said in here before you get down to ours.
Yeah, no, that. They're just short. Just.
Do we know the outcome from the Thornleys being served eviction from?
I think that's probably the next one.
When we get to it.
When we get to it.
When we get to it. Okay?
Yeah.
Are we finished with this one?
Yeah.
Yes.
We've resolved the issues that we can resolve. The rest of it, unfortunately, we can't resolve until when, unfortunately, should have been done last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to allotments then?
Yeah.
So the next item is to consider the next steps relating to the management of Moresby allotments. First of all, considering updating and reissuing a new tenancy agreement for Moresby allotment holders.
Okay, so I haven't managed to produce a paper yet because when I started to look at producing a paper, there were certain aspects that I needed clarity on to steer me in producing a paper, so I didn't start writing you all a book because I'm sure you've got better things to do with the time than read it, and I've got better things to do than write it. So the first one may or may not be straightforward, I don't know, is that I would strongly advise that Moresby Parish Council join the National Allotments Association. It costs £66 a year, and that gives the council access to all of the current updated legal precedent tenancy agreements. So I have a tenancy agreement that I use at Broughton. We did our review of our allotments. We're coming into the end of the 5th year now. We're not looking to review it again for another 5 years, so that will mean that the ones that we are using at Broughton will be slightly out of date. We are aware of that, but the logistics of reviewing a tenancy agreement every year is just too unwieldy. Now, I can't share the information that I have access to at Broughton from being a member of the Allotments Association with this council, which is against the terms of the membership that Broughton has with the Allotments Association. So, firstly, I would suggest that the council do that at a cost of £66, which means I can get all of the latest precedent information.
Well, really, we should have already had that, shouldn't we?
Yeah. So,
can we propose that we join?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody in agreement?
Yeah.
Is it wise to join it now?
Yeah.
Is it wise to join it right now with what's going on?
It's wise to join it now because we want a completed agreement.
In April.
Oh, no, I'm not on about that. I'm on about what's going on. What's on our next agenda? We're going to be looking at the trying to evict them off the. Will it interfere with that at all?
it won't interfere with anything that is current or historic. It's only going forward. So it might well confirm. Well, no, quite frankly, quite frankly, I can tell you what you've got is substandard. I can tell you that, but we can't change what you've got.
And we should have already had it, but we've got allotments, we should have had it.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Okay.
Well, nobody's ever mentioned it, no, but well, there you go.
Okay, the next thing that I need clarity on, and it may be that this is a really quick solve, and I hold my hands up. I'd hoped to come through this month and have a look on the allotment sites, but as I say, I've been unwell. I'm 11 days into being unwell, and at the moment, I don't know how long it's going to take to get better. Is that I could do with an accurate map or sketch of the site showing the plots and what people believe the plot numbers to be. I've got lots of plans. I've got lots of them. Very few are dated. And what the ones that do have dates on are, so I've got one that's dated 98, but obviously that's 25 years ago. So It's just making sure that the plan that I've got is accurate to what's on the ground. Or I can send you what I've got and you can all tell me which is the correct one, because nothing's dated, so
I've got a copy of the one that Chris showed me.
Okay, fine, so you can solve that problem for me. And then the final question, and this may or may not be the more contentious one, is that currently your tenancy agreement is only a yearly tenancy agreement, which is quite unusual for allotments. So normally allotments, tenancies are let in perpetuity, so they don't have an end date, so they are renewed annually in terms of they have an annual fee attached, but they don't have a fixed end date. But what they do have is conditions relating to either the surrender of the plot, as in the tenant wants to give it up, or the termination of the agreement, as in the council wishes to terminate. By only having a year's agreement on something like an allotment tenancy, it offers very little surety or security to the tenant that they're going to get it from year to year. So it reduces the amount of ownership, I suppose, that the tenants take, or pride in continuing to care for their allotment.
If there's behaviour cells, they'll keep it up.
So the question is whether you want to purely look at 1 year tenancy agreements, or whether you want me to give you options for the alternative, which is in perpetuity, but has those strengthened clauses relating to surrender and termination, which is the more standard way of working allotments.
Once we've joined and we've got the information that we can have, but you're not just sharing, we will have that information to know what we're doing.
That's fine.
And I think that would be, once we've got that information, we can make that decision.
Okay, so those were the 3 things that I need answered, or needed answered, sorry. So I can now take it forward and bring you a slightly more refined paper at the May meeting, which doesn't just involve literally every different type of tenancy agreement known to man, including small holdings.
What's happening now? We've gone past the April and there's no tenancy agreements.
So the tenancy agreements are renewing as they stand at the moment.
Surely the farmers haven't been renewed, have they?
No, they've got a termination, which is further down on the agenda. The others will renew with notice being given that during this allotment year, there will be a review of the tenancy agreement. Part of that process will be consulting with the existing allotment holders about the contents of the new tenancy agreement, but we're 2 stages away
I
from
mean,
that.
a lot of the allotment holders haven't been able to get on the allotments because of the water.
That's a block.
You know, the paths are blocked.
To be fair, we couldn't really do anything different until we've had 12 months to discuss it before we can change an agreement. So we would have to have that 12 months while we discuss it before we can actually change it.
Correct.
It's not whether changing it until this is sort of
No, but that's not to do with the farm. This is to do with the existing people that use the allotment properly.
The allotments, yeah, look, going forward, we're starting right now, we've got people who want off allotments, not give them extra time.
Well, that's why we served
I've been
eviction
nothing
notice. That's why we served them eviction notices, Mark, rather than just stopping the tenancy. Because if we stop a tenancy, we've got to give them 12 months' notice. If we evict them, it's different, and they've got to get off.
You're still in 12 months.
No, the eviction notice has just been done. Bexted though.
Are they still on the allotments now?
2 days to get off.
Yeah.
Okay, so I now have the information that I need from you all so that I can bring an allotment paper to you at the May meeting. Okay.
Well, Chris didn't do it, Mark, so...
Oh, Chris didn't do anything, no. This causes a lot of problems.
Okay. So if we now move on to the next part, which is to consider the appeals against tenancy terminations. So we've sent a number of...
Consider. The council's decision is final. It says it in the words that it is final. I want to be off all them allotments, and there's one more allotment which I don't know what's going on there because it was never ever in a woman's name, and that needs sorted as well. That's it.
I've got photographs there. The one thing that goes in my mind for the appeal, they haven't caused a nuisance but annoyance to people. All I can say that is the only photograph showing access paths stopping people getting to the allotments. That's what,
Yeah, so people can't get to the
that's what's been annoying. Or causing a nuisance. I don't know what it is.
Right over the top of our lands.
No.
We can't get it.
You can't even get a lawnmower with it, really. This is the time of day.
Yeah?
Carl's the allotment right by the pond, same as Dave's ponds as well. See, at the minute you can't give a lawnmower up there. And this is the time when you want to be setting your seeds. Can you walk up there with boots on? No. Well, it's only going to...
Is that a law in swim? That is a
If
law.
that's not a nuisance,
That's a law in merits
a
reduction.
nuisance. Disturbing the other tenants, I don't know what they're going on. But you know, that paper every day wants picked up and stuck in the
So, do we have a
I propose the eviction stands.
Okay, so that applies to the.
All the eviction.
Can we have a show of hands to see who makes the vote? Would that be okay?
You're not in this.
And is that for all four?
Five.
So that's for all plots related to the Thornleys. The final appeal doesn't relate to the
All,
Thornleys.
all family, all 5 allotments.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. I can confirm that the
Can you confirm the date that we can get back on our last?
Okay, so I can confirm that the termination stands. I will have to answer the questions which they raised within their appeals related to the documents that they asked for. I do not have those documents. As in, they are not in my possession and it predates when I was clerk.
Here's my facts. Everything they need to know be covered in our minutes, which are...
The annoyance has gone on for a year. It's well minuted.
So they obviously have access to the minutes, but they made specific requests for certain things. I am going to have to respond to that request and say that I do not have that information. Because I don't have it.
If you say you don't have it,
but I can refer them to the minutes. Yes, that is fine.
The council's decision is final, so whatever they say, it's absolutely
in terms,
don't have any discussion with them. They're off.
In terms of the
time, tell them they've got 2 days to take that fence down, or we will be taking it down.
Is it 2 days next? Can you confirm?
In terms of the time scale, now that I'm going to confirm that the appeal stands, and I will endeavour to do this tomorrow. However, I am technically and legally on sick. I'm not supposed to be working at the moment. I am poorly. So I will get it done in the next 48 hours. The law states that they should be given a reasonable period of time to comply once the appeal has been finalised. I would suggest that 2 days is too short and could give them grounds for legal challenge. Yeah. I would suggest that you say 14 days.
For all 5 allotments?
Yes.
I think the legal term that requires is normally 14 days.
Yeah.
So
Can
we don't want to
Can you ask them to reinstate that sandstone wall about as well?
to appeal. Yeah. So let's go with the 14 days, which is the legal advice. Everybody's happy? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
We don't give them another excuse to appeal. Okay.
So that's on the 5. What about A7 and A8?
Sorry to interrupt, just on the same question we're on. Does that mean that within that 14 days they have to restate everything, the fences back to the allotments, digital allotments?
Sandstone wall.
Sandstone wall, that fence needs took down that walkway in, there's 2 paths.
So they've had the list of things that the council wanted them to reinstate. That went out with the initial termination notice. They have 14 days in which to quit their occupation of the plot. At that point, the council can then inspect the plot again, and then the council can take a decision on what it does after that. So they have 14 days to do as much as they want or don't want. I can't comment upon that.
Once the 14 days comes, then what happens?
Then after 14 days, their occupation is ceased, and the control of the plots in question reverts to the council. I will confirm what date that 14-day period will end on once I send the letters. As I say, I will do them as soon as I can. At that point, it's back to the control of the council, and the council can do what they wish with those plots.
The first thing they want to do is stop their direct access from the back door.
But that's
Yeah, the
We've
wall
got the
is-
historic sandstone wall down.
but that's a discussion that at the moment we don't know what they're going to do in the 14-day period that they're being given. So that will have to be considered after the 14 days as it has expired.
And I know you're doing your best, did you, Rolf, and all that stuff you really are, but really would like these letters sent to SAP. Yeah?
I appreciate that, and I will get them done as soon as possible. But as I say, I am legally on sick. I could have cancelled the meeting tonight, but I'm aware of how important it is to you all that this took place. So I am here. I will do my best.
Okay. 8, 7 and 8.
So the final appeal we've got relates to one of the other remaining 2 tenants that has more than one allotment plot. So the council has made a decision that you don't wish anyone to have more than, any household to have more than one plot.
Is it 7 and 8? I don't know. Is that ours?
No.
Mel's? Oh, I was going
No,
to say,
it's not Mel's.
You can only get to the second one through the first
It's not
one.
Mel's, it's the other tenant that has 2. But in the
Oh, right.
on the grounds of GDPR, I can't share their information in a public meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
If members of the public want to hear their appeal, then if somebody else can read it out, you're welcome to do so, but I can't. It will be included in the minutes.
Yeah, so just like everybody else has got to, we still have to give one.
Is that a proposal?
She does say which one she wants.
She doesn't know the number.
Just doesn't know the number.
Sorry, who was the seconder on that?
It was,
So you proposed it, who was this? David? Okay. That's right. Okay, I think we're now going back up the agenda.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to work out how far back up the agenda to go. It's there. Actions update, 63. 1 additional works.
Okay, so a request was made by a member of the public, I think in February, for additional grounds maintenance works to be undertaken from what was the Copeland Borough Council depot to the bridge and the associated footpath. I've now had quotes back, or a quote back, I don't need more than one on this. So to cut back the vegetation on the grass verge along the road running up to Moresby depot would be £28.20 plus VAT per visit, and to cut back the path just before Moresby Bridge and then scrape back the path. This is the one where kind of the would be £74.85 plus VAT per visit. But obviously, I don't.
well, once it's done, it should be done for a little while, shouldn't it?
At most it's going to be manual visit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Should be fine. We'll just go ahead with that.
So we need that done because the path's getting narrower and narrower.
Okay, so normal proposed.
Yeah. I'll say
Okay.
Okay. Next one was War Memorial plaque sighting. This was brought up, I think, under public participation at the last meeting.
Yeah.
That it be brought back here.
Send a letter.
Yeah, I haven't yet written to the rugby club. I will write to the rugby club, but I've put it on the agenda so that you know that I haven't forgotten about it.
Well, some of the guys are here now.
Yeah, well, we'll actually accommodate with anything where anybody suggests or go on. Yeah, we said that. The other suggestion was that, you know the bit down by where your board is?
Yeah.
We were on about saying about getting like a little war memorial sort of area there. One of the lads said he had a lot of sandstone and things like that. And like a couple of the lads in the club and that said, well, we would help build it.
All right.
Just put it as like just put it down by the council board and so that people off the village, instead of having to come away for the weekends to come and see it,
Yeah.
They
It's
could
a
see it
lot-
as and when they
it's a
wanted it.
wooden object, it wouldn't
Probably means some sort of case or
it wouldn't be suitable for outside.
We'll put in some sort of, like if you could get some form of casing or something like that. Probably sort of a memorial thing.
Put a bit of nice specs on it, or some of that.
We're also saying about, because there's a miners thing over by the social club as well, isn't there?
Down there.
Isn't there?
It's halfway down.
I don't know whether they could be able to get that brought over and have it just as like, and just so that any, all the
Well,
all
that's
the
now
public can go and
Tracy
see.
Telford's, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you would have to.
So I don't know whether she would allow it or not, but instead of it being in here, where we're only open maybe Friday night, Saturday and Sunday afternoon, at least somebody can go and see it on a Monday or a Tuesday. or whatever.
It would be nice, Lee, if, you know, if the lads have got some sandstone and
Yeah,
they're
well-
willing to do it for us.
Well, we've had it, as I said, one of the lads might have said that they could get out of some sandstone, and there's a few of the lads said they'd give up a few hours at a time to try and get it done.
Yeah, yeah, that would be nice.
So, if Nick organises to have the plaque dropped off
Yeah,
here,
by all means, it can be kept there as long as you
Then
can
can-
until
Until
somebody
we get the
is,
job done.
it's up to yourselves, if it's your last land at the end of the day, if you don't want it.
Well, I mean, we could probably get
Well,
some
at the moment,
perspex put
it's
round
in the
it.
church, it's in the church, so it's available, you know, it's visible, but it's not here, it's not in this part of the Moresby Parish.
I mean, it was in the St. Mark's, so I think it should have come back up here.
Yeah, it was in the,
It's in St. Richard's now.
it's in St. Bridget's, but it was in the,
It was in
the,
St. Mark's.
It was in the mission and
In the
then
mission.
it got moved
Oh,
to
yeah.
St Mark's. And then,
the boots and that, and it's going in St. Bridget's.
So,
That would be lovely.
were you proposing putting it up in here in the meantime?
Well, as I said, we would either hold it, or we said we would either put it up if people were happy with that, but we thought the better thing would be, because we're only
Yeah,
open
but-
at weekends, it would have been better for all to
So you
see.
think to leave it at the church? and
That's what I was
Yeah.
asking the question. Is it better being left in the
Can
church
either be left
on
at
the wall,
the church
or do you
or
want
we'll,
to-
Yeah.
we'll happily hold it.
Well, we need to see it, we need to see what we're
We
going
need
to
dimensions,
We
you
need-
have the perspex box made for it while the sandstones get laid.
It's on the wall in the church. It's not in the church, it's on the wall in the church. If you go onto the website and look at any of the pictures that's up, you'll be able to see, you can see the big war memorial, and you see further along the wall the Moresby one. It's up on the wall, it's perfectly safe.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fly tipping Moresby Park lots.
yeah, so Alan raised this at the last meeting, and I've been in dialogue with Copeland, who are now Cumberland, about having this removed. They've been on site and they've inspected it and checked to see if there's any identifying stuff with it that they could proceed with a prosecution. There is no identifying matter on it, but there is a lot of it, and some of it has been there for a while. So they are estimating it will take a number of runs, collections. So at the moment, their potential quotation is £2,174 and £69 plus VAT.
Cost that for a skip?
You know where the car park is? Go onto the allotments.
What's a skip? A couple of hundred?
Yeah. Between 180 and 250.
Council are at liberty to do that. My only concern, or no, my only caution would be that if the council are wanting to do that, it needs to be organised, to be done with the skip to be delivered and to be collected in the same day, and the skip to be manned at all times.
Yeah.
Because if anyone puts anything in the skip that looks anything at all like asbestos, then we go into a realm of mug numbers that will make everybody's hair turn grey. So the council, you could resolve to do that, but it would have to be on those terms to protect the council from liability.
I think you can get space for a lockable, can you, for outdoors?
Yes, I believe you can, but I think they probably cost more. But having had asbestos appear in a council procured skip before.
And is that stuff being checked that there's no asbestos in it?
It's tiles, a
Some of that
mattress.
stuff's tiles where they've been putting new roofs on.
You can see who's had a new roof on, you know where the tiles have come from.
There's boxes, crates of tiles, of roof tiles that was left on in the